What do you do when someone humiliates you? Not with debate, not with criticism, but with something far more calculated? When they carve into your pride in front of others, strip you of your dignity like it's a game, and then smile as if your humiliation were entertainment? Most men recoil. They respond with immediate emotion, anger that burns too fast, shame that weakens their posture, silence that confirms defeat. Or worse, they submit, pretending it didn't matter. But Niccolo Machiavelli knew a darker law, one forged not in impulse, but in strategy. Injury must be done all at once. Revenge, slowly, precisely, and absolutely. This is not about ego. It's about psychological warfare. It's about regaining control in the shadows, when the stage lights are off and the audience has moved on. If you've ever been cut down in public, this is not the time to react. It is the time to observe, to sharpen, to become colder. Because true revenge isn't loud. It's stuttered. It's surgical. And when it lands, it leaves nothing standing. Now, let's go deep. Public humiliation is one of the most devastating psychological weapons. It doesn't just bruise your ego, it infects your identity. In one calculated moment, it punctures your social armor and plants a seed of doubt, not only in you, but in everyone who witnesses it. They begin to question your authority, your competence, your power. And worse, you begin to question yourself. It fractures the image you hold of who you are. And unless you respond with precision, that moment starts to define you, not just in your own mind, but in the collective memory of the room. Here's the brutal truth people rarely say aloud. In the brutal hierarchy of human perception, those who can be humiliated are not seen as leaders. They are seen as vulnerable. And vulnerability, when exposed publicly without consequence, marks you as prey. The second someone makes you look weak, and you do nothing, you become a story of defeat retold in the silence of glances, smirks, and memory. And in that moment, your status isn't just lowered, it's replaced. Most men respond to humiliation like wounded animals, barking, snapping, bleeding emotion. They react not with power, but with panic. Their anger spills out too fast, too loud, exposing the very weakness they are desperate to conceal. But here's the truth, emotional retaliation is not strength. It's instability on display. It shows the crowd, and your attacker, that they control your state. That they can pull your strings at will. And when you lash out in the moment, you often end up looking more foolish, more unhinged, than the insult that provoked you. Machiavelli would see this for what it is, predictable behavior. And predictable men are easy to read, easy to play, easy to control. He understood something colder, something more surgical. Real power isn't found in your reaction. It's forged in your restraint. Strategy, not emotion, is the language of those who win in silence. Because the man who controls his reaction, controls the game. When someone humiliates you in public, your first move is not retaliation, it's control. You master the one thing they are hoping to break, your face. No flinching. No smirking. No flash of rage. Your expression becomes a mirror, still, unreadable, impenetrable. Because the moment they can't read you, they lose grip on the game. The more unpredictable your response, the more psychological ground you reclaim. He who conquers himself, commands others. That is the rule of reversal. You don't defend. You don't explain. You don't perform. You observe. You slow everything down internally, like a predator calculating. Why did they do it? Was it a power move? A test? A pathetic attempt to gain approval by turning others against you? Each motive requires a different counterattack, but not now. Not here. In that moment, your silence is your shield, and your stillness becomes a threat. Because nothing unsettles an enemy more than a man who doesn't flinch when he's supposed to break. Controlled silence is more terrifying than fury. It whispers, "You've just made a move, and now I get to choose mine." Most people never grasp the power of delay. When someone humiliates you, they expect an immediate reaction, a burst of anger, a defensive word, a crack in your composure. That's their script. But when you break that script with silence, with calm, with nothing, you flip the power dynamic. Suddenly, they are the one unsettled. They start scanning your eyes for meaning. They wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, what they've just triggered. And in that uncertainty, you take back the frame. This is the first law of Machiavellian retaliation. When you strike back, make sure it is so precise, so total, that they can never repeat the offense again. You don't play checkers with emotions, you play chess with consequences. You delay your move not out of weakness, but out of intention. And when you finally make it, you don't just respond, you end the conversation. The goal isn't to react. The goal is to haunt. To make them regret ever using your name for amusement. To ensure the price of that insult is so steep, they never risk it again. True retaliation doesn't come through force, it comes through influence. You don't need to strike them. You need to reposition them in the social hierarchy, quietly, surgically. The goal is not physical domination, but perceptual dominance. You start by subtly undermining their credibility. Not with open attacks, but with carefully placed sarcasm, questions that linger, observations that plant seeds of doubt in others' minds. You shift the narrative without ever appearing hostile. At the same time, you elevate yourself, socially, intellectually, psychologically. You display excellence without arrogance. Presence without desperation. And most importantly, you never speak of them again. Because the most brutal revenge is rising above them in status while making them irrelevant in your story. You expose their insecurity through contrast. Many who humiliate others do so to mask their own weakness. When the group begins to see that, their power fractures. And finally, you withdraw your validation. You make them invisible. To someone seeking control, indifference is far more punishing than confrontation. When they no longer affect your emotions, they lose their leverage. Machiavelli said, "You must kill the lion in the mind before the sword ever touches flesh." That is internal warfare. That is real victory, the kind won in silence, by the man who acts from control, not from wounded pride. Never forget, humiliation leaves a scar, but that scar is not a mark of weakness. It is a weapon forged from pain, a reminder etched deep into your psyche that sharpens your edge. It reveals who you truly are when the world is trying to break you. Machiavellian wisdom doesn't chase peace or forgiveness, it demands clarity and power born from harsh lessons. You don't erase the past, you study it coldly, deliberately. Every moment of shame, every public cut, becomes a blueprint, not for despair, but for domination. The memory of pain fuels your strategy, steels your resolve, and transforms you into a man who doesn't just survive humiliation, but wields it as a tool to rise higher and strike harder. This is the path from victim to victor. And it begins the moment you stop reacting and start controlling. The world will test you relentlessly. Someone will seek to break your composure, to make you look small, to laugh at your expense while others watch in silence. When that moment comes, you face a stark choice: collapse under the weight of emotion, or rise into a realm of calculated darkness. Let them believe they have won. Let them gloat and revel in their fleeting victory. But you, smile quietly, watch every detail, move with deadly silence. Then, when the moment is truly yours, strike back with such ruthless precision that they will never dare cross you again. This is not mere revenge. This is balance. A Machiavellian balance that demands patience, control, and cold intent. The man who masters this art becomes untouchable, not because he never falls, but because he never stays down.